Hello, everyone, and welcome to Coaching Conversation, Movement is Medicine. So I like to start this session with this thought: I am not afraid of storms, for I am learning how to sail my ship. Maya Angelou does a great job of kind of setting a tone and tenor for how we can go into some material together. So let's talk about movement. And tonight we'll talk a little bit about movement, exercise, physical activity. What is it and what's the difference? We'll explore movement, the benefits of adding more movement, and then we'll share. Really kind of invite you to think about tonight within the lens of curiosity. Put on your discovery hats, your growth mindset, and be open to some hope. So let's get started into Movement is Medicine. One of my favorite quotes: that movement is nature's best medicine, and there is no medication or even nutritional supplement that even comes close to having all the effects that movement and exercise does. This is a quote from David Nyman. He's an author of The Exercise Health Connection: How to Reduce Your Risk of Disease and Other Illnesses by Making Exercise Your Medicine. So let's help shift the conversation. By design, our bodies were made to move. But what if we focus more on movement, like a movement-enriched life where we move as much as possible all day long? This would mean that in addition to the great work you're doing with Jake and any other exercise provider or professional you're working with, we also have the chance to look at our daily routines from top to bottom and place just as high of a value on moving more of our body parts throughout the day as we do completing a fitness class or routine. So kind of like look at those as kind of the same weight or the same value. And we can start off by just defining what movement is. And movement can be simply defined as the act of changing physical position or location. That's it, plain and simple. Physical activity, any body movement produced by skeletal muscles that result in substantial increase in caloric requirement over resting energy requirement. And then, of course, exercise. That's a planned, structured repertoire done to improve or maintain one or more components of physical fitness. So just so we kind of are all on the same level playing field of what these definitions mean, and they're very closely related, obviously, but for tonight, we're just going to focus on movement and the act of changing that physical position of our body. That's it. So Katie Bowman, she does a great job of kind of introducing this concept and talking about this concept. She's a biomechanist and a leader in the movement. And she talks about movement in terms of it being nutritious. So just like the idea that kale is great for us, it's not the only phytonutrient or vegetable that we need. So diversity is the name of the game in nutrition, as well as with daily movement. So within the public health field, the acronym SLOTH is often used, ironically, as it relates to areas of movement and how we can increase movement. And they use SLOTH to talk about these 5 areas of our life. So S for sleep, L for leisure, O for occupation, T for transportation, and H for home. So kind of an easy acronym to remember in the context of movement. So let's go ahead and hear from Katie about her nutritious movement.
How can I use my phone to mobilize my shoulders?
This is not your typical exercise class. It's a movement workshop.
And it's a phone and a personal trainer, like a dance, the phone dance.
It's a class that shows people how to move in more diverse, healthier ways. There's me. I'm Molly, a journalist, and also what you might call a sedentary person. I really hate exercise. It's not just me. We're more sedentary than we've ever been as a species, and it's having a serious effect on our health. Welcome to the movement, a way of framing fitness not by how much we exercise, but by how little we move. We talked to scientists and movement experts to find out if maybe we've been thinking about exercise all wrong. I'm Molly Rubin. This is Quartz. Please subscribe to our channel. This is your living room?
It is.
To learn more about the movement, I traveled to a small town on the Olympic Peninsula to meet Katie Bowman. I don't see a couch.
You don't see a couch. There's no chairs really in the entire house. We've got lower tables.
Katie's part of a larger global fitness trend that emphasizes diverse natural movement and is gaining followers from Hong Kong to Israel to the UK. Even at home, Katie takes movement very seriously.
I will put things that I use most regularly where I have to go the lowest or the farthest.
There are monkey bars in the bedroom. She sleeps on a mat she rolls up every day.
So this is our bedroom. It's hanging here on the wall.
It might seem like a lot.
Where are your chairs?
But for Katie, it's natural. She built her life to maximize movement wherever possible. Why is movement so important?
We have an epidemic as far as sedentary behavior.
Katie is a trained biomechanist and fitness instructor who teaches people how to add more movement to their lives, which she says is an essential part of staying healthy.
We've seemed to only value long duration, big, intense. We no longer see the value in small, slow, accumulating.
Katie preaches more movement, not more exercise.
Movement is any physical change in shape, whether it's whole body or an area or a cell.
For me, the exercise hater, movement sounds too good to be true. I wanted to know more about how and why we need to move.
You don't have to go to a gym.
Keith Diaz is an exercise physiologist, and he says sitting at desks all day, spending hours in front of the TV or computer could be killing us.
Sedentary behavior increases your risk for things like heart disease, diabetes, early death.
Exercise is good, but even if we exercise, it doesn't undo the harmful effects of sitting for hours on end.
When you're not utilizing your muscles, they start not regulating like they should. Your blood sugar levels, the fat in your bloodstream.
Think about the math. If you exercise for half an hour every day, that's 23 and a half hours you aren't moving. But even a little bit makes a big difference.
If you replace 30 minutes of your sitting time with 30 minutes of light intensity physical activity, so a casual walk down the street or down the hall, you'd lower your risk of death by 17%.
Wow. And there's an even bigger advantage to breaking up that movement throughout the day.
Those individuals who frequently kept their sitting breaks to less than 30 minutes at a time had a lower risk of death. Okay? That it's not just how much you sit, but how you accrue that sitting time over the course of the day.
Why is movement so important from a physiological perspective?
Our bodies are designed to move.
What he's talking about here is evolutionary mismatch. Herman Poncer is an evolutionary anthropologist who studies the Hadza, one of the last remaining hunter-gatherer tribes. How can hunter-gatherer populations be models for public health?
They don't get sick from the things that are going to kill us. They don't get heart disease. They don't get diabetes. They get less cancer. Our bodies are built, they were shaped by evolution for 2.5 million years to be hunting and gathering. So our lifestyles today are completely mismatched from the lifestyles in which our bodies were shaped. This lifestyle is extremely weird.
And another thing about the Hadza, how much time per day do the Hadza spend running?
0. The Hadza don't run at all.
Back in Washington, Katie has a pretty unique way of thinking about our need for movement.
Well, I really liken movement to nutrition, to dietary nutrition.
Just like food, she says, our bodies need a healthy movement diet.
As far as dietary nutrition goes, it's all about the diversity of foods that you eat. The bulk of us are movement starved. And so that is why the recommendation keeps being just move more, just move anything more.
And if high intensity exercise a few times a week is all we do, we're not getting a broad range of movement into our diet.
Maybe movement is what it's about, and that exercise is great, but maybe not the best that we can be doing.
And the idea of exercise itself is pretty new. Exercise science really didn't come about until the 1960s and 70s.
I would say that exercise is more like the solution that's erupted from designing a society that doesn't require very much movement.
We're primed to think of high-intensity aerobic activity as the healthiest way to move. But taking a long walk means moving for 2 or 3 hours versus 30 minutes. Why choose less movement?
We sip the exercise Kool-Aid.
It's about re-examining your entire life and environment to be more active overall. The key is finding ways to stack movement on top of things you're already doing.
So, for example, if you go out on a date, is there a chair involved? Is there a lack of movement involved? You can layer movement into the things that are already happening.
I'm sure you hear all the time the counter arguments to stacking, and people say, I just don't have enough hours in the day.
If you can't walk all the way to work, could you drive halfway or 3/4 of the way? Don't worry about not being able to fit in a 5-mile walk or a 3-mile walk or even a 1-mile walk. Do you have 6 minutes?
Even sitting can be movement if you choose to sit differently.
Choosing to sit on the floor in your home is stacking.
Because you're moving your whole body all the way down and all the way up. I don't think many of us will get rid of our couches anytime soon. But it's not about turning your life upside down. It's about having an open mind. There are extremists. Ido Portal became a viral internet star preaching a lifestyle that requires a ton of time and money. Videos of athletes like Conor McGregor movement training rack up millions of views, but we all have the tools to do it. My trip to Washington opened my eyes to how often I choose the easy way. Changing the patterns of your daily life is a daunting challenge, but the more willing you are to make a shift, the more benefit you'll get in the long run.
I think the Hadza teach us that getting old is inevitable, but getting frail and sick are not.
I can't wait until I'm 70. This is to have gone through so many different phases to see where movement fits in.
I've been climbing the stairs to my 5th floor apartment for 6 weeks now. It's a small change, but I can already feel a little bit of difference. And I find myself itching to move just a little bit more.
So really, Katie is talking about movement in a way that is not about this diet culture and weight loss kind of arena that we're in, but really an opportunity to engage with life in a more meaningful way. So tonight we're talking about using movement as a tool in your wellness toolbox, knowing that it's portable. You can take it anywhere you go. So if you're traveling, you don't have to get off track. It's personal. Another thing to remember. So if we can just pause for a minute and listen to what works for our body, not what the YouTube video says to do or what we're prescribed to do, our chances of sustaining movement in our life are greater. And really the idea here is that small amounts of diverse movement throughout the day can have positive health benefits. And it's not an all or nothing game here. So there's new research out of the British Journal of Medicine. So 44,000 participants over the course of 14 years were studied. And the reports that came out of that were just 11 minutes a day can add benefit to your health. And then if you go a little bit further to 35 more minutes a day of movement yielded more results, especially in the area of joint health. There's also a study out of Stanford that revealed people who walked for 20 minutes versus sitting for 20 minutes were more than 60% more creative, which I think is pretty fascinating when you think about how the brain works and how our brains are affected by our bodies moving or not moving. And the idea too is that if it works for kids, then we can try it too. So there's been a really recent effort in the school systems to offer brain breaks for kids during the daytime. And there's also this idea of the Daily Mile. That's a public school initiative where kids are coming to school a little early so they could all walk together because the school systems are realizing that, kids are not moving enough. So why not learn from the kids, right? If the kids can do it, we can do it. So here's some fun ideas to try. pretend you're sitting on a trampoline for 5 minutes and, or not sitting, but pretend you are on a trampoline for 5 minutes and jump and just jump, just 5 minutes. Stir the pot. I love this one. Pretend you're stirring a big pot of something gooey in a cauldron and just kind of get your arms moving. Spread your wings, spread your arms in slow rotation. That's something we can do when we're on a call or when we're just looking at a screen, watching a Netflix movie or video. Pick one yoga pose and go for it. And then there's also something that I know the kids use in school called Go Noodle. And why not use it for us? It's a great little resource of ways to get moving throughout the day. And it's fun. It's something fun. So Katie mentioned also in her little clip about sitting and how she doesn't really have any chairs in her house. And of course, we don't expect people to, not have chairs in their house necessarily. But the idea here is chair-free postures that keep us moving. And kind of one way to keep on moving is to sit on the floor and to see how that feels. And here is a poster of all the different postures you can take while you're sitting on the floor. And just notice, do you keep shifting as you sit on the floor? Is it harder to get comfortable? And if it is, that's the whole point, right? The whole point is to kind of keep yourself moving, because you think alternatively, when we're sitting on a couch, it's so cozy and comfy. We've got our pillows and our blankets. We're really not moving that much. But if we're on the floor, at least as an adult, I believe we're trying to find that perfect spot. So in essence, we just keep on moving, which is kind of the idea here. So dispel the myth, you need a gym or a gym membership to get healthy. And really kind of look at, sometimes all it takes is a good YouTube video or hand weights or a yoga mat or house cleaning or gardening to get moving, and to really just kind of reframe how we think and where we place value on movement in our life. These are little micro workouts by Justin Augustin, and I'll just play a clip. He talks about ways to incorporate little kind of movement into your day.
Here's how you can practice engaging your core all throughout the day. When you're watching TV, instead of slouching, sit up and tighten up those abs. Keep that posture nice and straight. As you're waiting for your coffee or just chilling in the kitchen, try some counter planks. Do one arm at a time for a greater challenge. When you're on the phone or reading a book, try some side planks and long planks in the shower. Just be careful.
So just some ideas there. If you Google him, you can come up with some really other great little examples. From a previous session on movement, some of the participants talked about how they march in place when they're brushing their teeth, which I thought was a really interesting and creative way to add more movement into their life. And so when we talk about some of the research, it's really kind of emerging in the last decade about movement. And even though the idea has been around for a very long time, scientists are now learning that your muscles are actual endocrine organs that are manufacturing proteins and chemicals that they store. And when you contract your muscles, you release chemicals that reduce inflammation, control your blood sugar, and kill cancer cells. So think about it. When you move, these chemicals, they can cross that blood-brain barrier, and they function as antidepressants and help us recover from severe stress and trauma. They can also be referred to, and in this study, particularly as hope molecules, because when you move, you're releasing hope into your system. And this kind of supports the idea that our bodies are actually built from an evolutionary standpoint to support our mental health. Movement also, in the same way, affects us on this biochemical level. And that's when, it can change our brain chemistry in ways that help us connect with other people. And that's happening through this endocrine release of these hormones, the endorphin hormone, the endocannabinoid release, and then that oxytocin hormone. So these are all these hormones that are changing our brain on this biochemical level. And so the research says about 20 minutes of out of breath movement can do this and can help fine-tune social instincts that we have that encourage things like cooperation. So it doesn't have to be 20 minutes of jumping jacks. Maybe it's 20 minutes of out of breath vacuuming, anything, cleaning the bathroom. Regular movement can help increase insulin sensitivity, which helps you on this cellular level. So we talked about the brain. Now we're talking down to the cells. Our cells become more adept at using the blood sugar in the bloodstream. So that existing blood sugar, which combats that bottoming out feeling. So another reason to get moving. So let's look at these benefits of moving again through the physical health, and we'll split them out between physical and mental. So from a physical standpoint, movement improves circulation. I think we can all agree upon that. Lowers cholesterol. It utilizes these heightened defenses that reduces incidence of chronic disease as we age, including communicable viral and bacterial infections. So the common cold. Movement helps memory and brain function at all ages by increasing the size of our hippocampus. So our brain is actually growing in size. Movement helps prevent cardiac event and stroke by improving production of this atrial natriuretic peptide. It's the hormone that counterbalances high blood pressure. Movement helps control those blood glucose levels that we talked about, helps prevent bone loss. It's an inflammation reducer by making antioxidants that destroy those free radicals associated with prolonged inflammation. And as a result, can lower that C-reactive protein level, which is our body's primary marker for inflammation. Diverse full body movement restores and preserves fascia health, which is that white elastic tissue that shrink wraps our internal structure beneath the epidermis. It also improves joint pain and stiffness and combats cancer-related fatigue. And one of my favorite quotes is motion is lotion, because when we move, we are lubricating our joints. And that is from the synovial fluid. So when we move, that synovial fluid is being released and lubricating our joints. My mom recently had hip surgery. I like to tell this story, and she had an awesome physical therapist, and he wrote on the whiteboard every day, motion is lotion. It's an easy way to remember to keep moving. And so really what dose? People say, well, how much movement? And so any movement that gets you breathless. And again, I use this example of high-paced vacuum session or a bathroom cleaning where you're out of breath because you're bending, you're stretching, you're moving. Let's talk about the benefits of moving through the mental health lens. And really, it's that improved sleep, increased interest in sex and intimacy, a stress reliever. Movement can be just that, a stress reliever. It can decrease stress hormones and negative thoughts, improve mood and depressive feelings, especially if you're outside, increase self-esteem and confidence, connect you with life. Movement can be a source of joy, belonging, and connection. And the dose here is any and all types of movement count. So I love this quote by Hippocrates, if you are in a bad mood, go for a walk. If you are still in a bad mood, go for another walk. So here's some 13 simple tips kind of to get moving. And really it's finding the thing that resonates with you. Because anytime we want to do a small shift, that leads to meaningful change, we want it to be something that is sustainable. So even small amounts throughout the day of movement count. And action begets action the same way movement begets movement. And then that habit stacking, of course, we talked about can be really helpful. So we're not talking about like creating a new regimen or creating anything new. We're talking about building off of what already exists in your life. So time of day matters. It's personal. Not everybody likes to move first thing in the morning or after work or at lunch. So really kind of allowing yourself to figure out what time of day works for you. Use music, podcasts, audiobooks. If you have a hard time going for a walk, maybe if you pop one of those in your ear, you'd be more inclined to walk a little longer. Libby's a great resource, free from your local library. Park farther away from the store, the library. I always have the tendency on autopilot to go for that first spot that's closest. So this is just a reminder to kind of do the opposite. change your desk or your computer to a DIY standing desk. You don't have to go purchase one, like a fancy standing desk. You can just pile some boxes, some shoe boxes, Amazon boxes, and throw your computer on top. And really, voila, you've got a standing desk. Just try it and see if it works for you. Crates are great too. And then you can move your legs while you're kind of on screen. You can wear leg or arm weights to make walking around the house or cleaning more meaningful. Take the next phone call on a walk or around the block. Invite a friend. Research shows us that when we will move longer, we will walk farther. And there's obviously multiple benefits when we're connecting with a friend. Involve nature. So when we're outside, nature has the ability to alter our brain activity in a way that meditation does by quieting the brain activity. Anytime our senses are involved, even better. Walk around the house on rainy days. So rainy days can be the hardest, right? How am I going to get outside? How am I going to go for my walk or my run? Just walk around the house on rainy days and and do it as often as you feel so inclined. Optimize your clothing and the environment. So this is another hack I like on days when you know you're going to be home. Wear those exercise clothes and maybe purchase some indoor sneakers or designate a pair of sneakers that you have to be your indoor sneakers. I have found myself personally that if I have my sneakers on in the house versus my slippers, I tend to move around a lot more up and down the steps. Use the rule of threes. So if you're aiming for that 30 minutes or so, but don't have the time, break it up into 10 10-minute segments. Get 10 minutes of moving in the morning, 10 after lunch, 10 in the evening, however you want to do it. And then utilize alarms or an Alexa device to set reminders to move. And then the last one is that sitting on the floor as a way of moving. So I want you to kind of take out your journals and I want you to just jot down what works for you. Now that we've kind of talked about all these different tips. And if you pause the recording, go ahead and just give yourself a minute to do that. What works for you in terms of moving throughout the day? So I'm going to keep going. And the next thing I want to do is talk about that SMART goal. So on our very first coaching conversation of this training, we talked about a SMART goal. So this is something that it doesn't have to be this big goal. It can be something really small. So in the context of adding more movement into your life, I want you to think about one thing that maybe you could try. And, when you think about your day from top to bottom, really think about how you might be able to incorporate just one small way of moving a little bit more. Make sure that it's something that is appealing to you, fits your body, and is meaningful to you. And then try to make it a SMART goal. So again, a SMART goal is specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. So for example, I will walk 10 more minutes each day for 3 days this week. I will start on Wednesday and do it for 2 weeks. So take a minute or two and just think of one thing that you could incorporate into your life. And pause this recording and give yourself about 2 minutes. When you resume, I want you also to think about identifying obstacles. What is going to get in your way, and write that down too, and potentially a strategy to get around that obstacle. And then also would like you to think about support. Sometimes when we say a goal out loud or we share a goal with someone, it puts it out there and we are more inclined to stick with that goal. So just write down the name of one person that you could share this goal with and who might be of support to you. So go ahead and pause and think about those things, any obstacles, and then strategies around the obstacle and who can be of support to you. I'm going to continue on. So here's a fun fact. When we think about working towards a goal, we sometimes think reward, right? Like if I'm going to work towards something, I want to feel a reward right away. So there are two kinds of rewards, and they're just worth mentioning in this space of habit change or habit shifts. And one of them is this H reward, this hedonia reward. And that's kind of like a superficial pleasure, such as looking good, weight loss, acceptance by others. That sometimes can be a really big motivator or a reward for people. These rewards are concrete and often short-lived. So what I would like you to consider is this eudaimonia reward, this E reward. That refers to a sense of meaning and purpose that contributes to your overall well-being. So when you can connect your goal or your SMART goal to an E reward, you have an increased chance of sustaining the shift. So if you're thinking about incorporating something new, I want you to think about what would this yield and why? And that brings us to unlocking your personal why. Why would you want to incorporate more movement into your life? Why would you want to march while you're brushing your teeth? Or why would you want to be more open to ways of moving throughout the day? And just take a minute, pause the video, and write down your why. Could be a person's name, could be a reason, whatever comes to mind. And I'll continue on. Now that we've spent 6 coaching conversation sessions together, my hope is that some seeds have been planted in the areas of SMART goals and the wheel of life, like we discussed in our first conversation, grief and gratitude, boundary setting and self-worth, life purpose and strengths, connection as medicine, and movement as medicine. I hope to continue this conversation with you through the Facebook group, through iRise, or however you may choose, because I know you will all bloom in your own personal way. 3 reminders as we kind of move forward with our growing selves, that it's progress, not perfection. Be on time with yourself, but also be flexible. Life happens, and life has a way of throwing curveballs to us all the time. So if we can't get to our goal today, we know that tomorrow is a new day and we can utilize that fresh start. And number 3, invite grace. And grace can mean different things to different people. Sometimes it's permission, sometimes it's humor. For me, it's definitely humor. So my grace is always adding a little bit of sense of humor when I'm setting a goal for myself. So I just want to leave you with this quote, just for the record, darling, not all positive change feels positive in the beginning. I think that's a really kind of telling quote, and also my favorites from today. So today's podcast favorite, or one of them, is Move Your DNA with Katie Bowman. So she has her own podcast called Move Your DNA. She's also featured on the Wellness Mama podcast, where she talks about her book, Grow Wild, Optimal Movement for Children and Families. Justin Augustin is that YouTuber that has lots of little micro movement hacks and tips throughout the day that you could try. And then, of course, my favorite book called The Blue Zones by Dan Buettner, or Buettner, I think that's how you say it. And he writes about the blue zones across the world that have the largest number of centenarians. And I think you might be surprised what the common thread is between these different communities. And then, of course, the Bala bands I have pictured. Those are from, I think, Dick's Sporting Goods or whatever, but just any sort of hand weights if you wanted to kind of have it stack while you're cleaning or, kind of straightening up. I want to have a big thank you to iRise and to all of you for allowing me to spend this time with you and to share and to really kind of learn from you all as we spent the last 6 sessions together. And I always am open to continued conversation. Please connect with me through email or feel free to give me a phone call. Also on the Facebook, the iRise Facebook private group, I'm happy to connect that way too. So thank you so much.